really quick. We are going to go live in just a few moments here. We are going to go live in just a few moments for people who might be joining us. Okay, I believe, let's see, we are not receiving video data at a rate fast enough. Okay, but I believe that we are live at this point. So, hello everyone, this is Sean. I've got with me Levi Leas and Preston McCauley. If you've been following us for some time, you heard Levi and I did an episode 1 a couple days ago talking about what we expect from the HoloLens 2 announcement today. And then we had another live stream today. Actually, that was a surprise. It was supposed to be on Sky's channel on Matrix Inception. But we ended up having a pretty fun live stream and live reactions announcement. And then now, post-announcement, we're going to be sharing our fresh thoughts live, hot off the press, about the HoloLens 2. A lot was discussed in the hour, lots to talk about, and yeah, let's go ahead and just dive right in. So Levi, first of all, what do you think about, compared to our initial thoughts the other day and what we saw today? Did it kind of, what percentage would you give it that it lined up with your expectations? 50%, 99%, 2%?
As far as expectations go, I would say that it exceeded them. I would say
Really?
yeah, I mean, for what I hoped for, probably 80%. I would say 4 out of 5. That sounds about right for like what I would hoped would happen. So the fact that like most of what I was hoping for happened, I would say it far exceeded what I expected, which was a moderate improvement, if not just sort of getting up to where Magic Leap is. To be able to get up and sort of match Magic Leap on a few of the different specs that they have. To stay competitive, we talked about how they needed to maybe exceed some of those things. And I feel like the fact that they came out and exceeded Magic Leap in every area, they passed Magic Leap in every metric except for price. That was actually pretty surprising. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah. So we've got several viewers who's joined us. We've got Zhan Dao, we've got Linda, we've got Ariam. So
Hello.
if we have any questions from people watching, feel free to type in your questions in the comments section, and we'll try and get to it during the stream. Preston, what about you? What percentage would you give it? Are you on the same page with Levi, or do you have different thoughts?
Well, so it's hard for me because I always have a lot of high expectations. So I want everything and I want it now. So that's my belief.
So what did you not get?
From that, well, I think the price point is definitely something that's a little challenging, of course, right, for a lot of people. But it looks like I've had a lot of time in the Magic Leap, so spending time within that device, this personally feels like it did leapfrog the Magic Leap from what I've seen with the interaction states. With the hand tracking, which I was in the live VR feed watching it, and a little bit slow behind, but it looked like the tracking was extremely fast, handling occlusion really well, which is a huge challenge from any type of technology like this. So I was really excited to really get a chance to see that, and then also have them demo some of the other capability, and even just being able to flip it up. Being a developer, right, working in that space, we often need to switch modes. So I think I'm really excited about that. Definitely, same thing as Levi. So me, I'm like, I'm about 60%. Of kind of what I hoped was there.
So
I think the open access is going to be big.
Yeah, so before this announcement, I was thinking that, okay, I would firmly think like what the outcome is going to be, how Microsoft has positioned itself in the landscape as a competitive force. However, now I'm actually having a big doubt. There's no doubt in my mind the capabilities shown are breathtaking and mind-blowing and out of this world. But with the price point, we've got Magic Leap at what, $2,300, and with the HoloLens 2 at $3,500, that's a big enough price difference where there is a little question in my mind as far as what is adoption going to look like between these two devices? Does Magic Leap now suddenly stand a special chance because of that pricing gap? Right? What do you guys think about Magic Leap's chances given that pricing gap now?
Well, definitely there's an advantage from the Magic Leap on the consumer side. I think you probably all agree about that, right? It's pretty clear that Microsoft is going after the business customer. So that shift has been very, very prominent now in this video.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's kind of what everyone always. I mean, pricing is always one of the big questions on everyone's mind, and let's definitely get back to that. But let's also talk about some of the features that were shown. Was there anything that you guys thought you saw today that you were not expecting, or do you feel like everything was kind of like, okay, I kind of saw that one coming, or I hope to see that one?
So for me, I feel like I went into it thinking it needs to be a lot lighter. Like it's just not comfortable. But I feel like when I saw that little graphic where they moved the balance, the ballast point, right? Like they move where it's balancing from, the center of gravity. That's what yeah. So when they moved the center of gravity, and I didn't realize that was actually the biggest issue for me in terms of the comfort and the fit. It was really annoying to have it it just felt like it was falling forward all the time. And so for me, I think that was
in your nose, right?
Yeah, and I didn't realize that was such a pain point for me. I just knew it was uncomfortable, and I assigned it to weight. So the fact that they made it lighter, but then also repositioned that center of gravity, I think that's going to actually make it quite a bit more comfortable. Not just a little bit, but I think that'll transform the way it feels, that's important. It's a wearable. It's got to feel good.
Do you think it's $1,000 more comfortable?
I do. Again, it's hard to get over the price point. I do know though, my wife does real estate and she uses a MacBook Air, and she just needs to browse the web and log into different, make her calls. She's got to log into her CRM and some of that kind of stuff. But it's all sort of web-based, whereas I'm running Unity. I've got an iPad out the side. I've got, I'm streaming over Hangouts with 2 different devices all at the same time. So I have so much wear and tear on my computer. My Mac, her MacBook Air is at 1200. Mine's up in it's high. It's more.
Yeah. So, I think that, Levi, I think you might be cutting out a little bit, but I definitely think that Oh, sorry, Levi. I think you were cutting out a little bit earlier from the stream.
Okay.
But yeah, so I was gonna say that I definitely agree. I think that Microsoft their journey has been interesting because they started out targeting consumers. And then they later realized that, okay, it's really enterprise that's increasing in adoption. And so given that trend, I think they had to make a hard choice, which was, are we going to be targeting everyone, or are we going to be doubling down on enterprise? And I feel like that's exactly what they did here. And
the fact that they brought an iPad out on stage as the second device,
yeah, exactly.
That's telling.
Exactly. So, they're definitely doubling down, and it makes sense. Although we all want mass adoption as a consumer-ready device, it makes sense that the technology is not quite there yet for billions of people to be wearing this on a daily basis at the train stations and out on the streets and, in their houses 8 hours a day, right? The technology is not there yet. So why pretend like it's there? Might as well put all your eggs in the basket that you know where it is right now, even if that price point's a little higher than what consumers want it to be, for enterprises, they don't care if it's $3,500 or $3,000. Like, for them, that doesn't make a difference at all for enterprise. And so, you know, from that standpoint, it makes a lot of sense what they've done. I think it's interesting.
I think one of the challenges, though, with that line of thinking, though, Sean, is that, you know, there are development shops that ultimately work with these enterprise clients that have to build this software.
Yeah.
So, you know, there is that, like, you know, and they're not enterprise clients. So it's going to be really important to see how that development community is enabled as well to be able to be successful. Because a lot of these companies, I've seen several of them that have brought some of this development in-house. But, you know, it's going to be really unique to see kind of how those outside companies are dealing with this ERP level development process.
Yeah. So do you feel like the price point is such that it creates a very high barrier to entry for smaller developers? So like
definitely. Yeah. I think definitely that can be a really killing point on a lot of these things. You know, I mean, we even ran into that even on the Magic Leap side, right? It's why they were trying to get other people in and give them devices, vice versa.
Yeah.
Of course, you know, they're going after both segments.
So
you know, hey, Sean, what kind of features, I want to go back to the features a moment there. What features did you see that you just thought were above kind of everything?
So Levi asked me that during our last episode. He said, what feature, if they show, will drop your jaw? And I said, fully articulated hand tracking. That was one thing that, you know, I knew was in the realm of possibility, because we've got technologies like Leap Motion out that does that, not to be confused with Magic Leap. But when I saw it on stage, where they were even playing a piano with all their fingers, and there was like even at one point,
that was amazing.
Yeah, and there was even at one point they showed the mesh following the finger. That mesh, that convinced me. I was like, oh wow, okay, it's not just some fake hand tracking. It's like real finger tracking. I think to me that was mind-blowing, because there's different levels of hand tracking. Currently, technically the current gen HoloLens has hand tracking, but it's not really that great. Kinect, the old generation's Kinect had hand tracking. Magic Leap has a form of hand tracking, but it's interesting. But I feel like the level of quality of the HoloLens 2 hand tracking is legitimate from what I saw in the video.
It was off enough to be like that's real. Like, you're looking at it and you're like, okay, so it's just barely delayed. Oh, that's amazing. Like, if it was perfect, you'd be like, I don't know if that's real.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, it was like you would have thought it was staged, right? And I think that's really interesting too, because I know in the past we've seen some HoloLens demos of various things, right? And being developers and designers, we know that you just pop up a Unity scene, right? And that scene is ready to go to fake. Right?
Yeah.
So we're seeing a lot of that, and also, you know, just some of the voice commands like follow to bring that, and then browser cross integration across apps.
Yes.
That is going to be huge, because, I mean, I can't think of how many times I've been like, I wish I could pull a browser into this app experience as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was pretty
100%.
shocked about that, and just, you know, them like grabbing the browser and then pinning it somewhere. You know, when I saw stuff like that, I was just thinking like the use case of the usability of the HoloLens just went up a lot. You know, that you can physically push buttons, you can physically grab stuff, you can physically, you know, I think that there's going to be so much more like real value and real like life productivity that you can do now that you couldn't do with the first generation HoloLens. And I think this is where the game changer starts to happen. Like opening the door.
Because that first HoloLens is really, really good at making demos. You know, even when you're filming what you're seeing, it just seems so immersive and so amazing. And like, you know, seeing him sitting up there in front of this like engine that they just were about to explode, and he's up and he's looking around, and it's like, I know that he basically sees a fraction of that engine, you know, and so it's like certain things that maybe before we'd be believing and being like, oh, that's incredible. And then you try it on, you're like, oh, I don't know. I feel like this was the first time that I watched a demo, being the skeptic that I am, and was like, wow, that actually has usability to a degree where somebody's going to buy that as a tool to actually use it.
Yeah.
That's different. That's different than like, what can we do? What can we make? Let's go create and let's explore. It's almost like we're past exploring and we found our site and now we're going to break ground. You know, the industry's ready to break ground.
Yeah.
Which is terrifying to me still, because like I've been preaching it to the crier for years, is we just don't have a lot of UX designers that are ready for this type of thinking. It's a whole another ball field when you're thinking of working with digital interaction.
Yeah.
In three-dimensional spaces, and also understanding the persistence of those, you know, which they talk a little bit about, I believe, some of the cloud stuff. You know, but the difference is, I think a lot of the challenges that you mentioned, Levi, is it does seem a little bit more seamless. To me, it seemed like it was more like a holistic operating system as opposed to a bunch of apps segmented.
Yep.
So, you know, that was really big, because there's nothing worse than kind of feeling like you're boxed into an environment. You can't really do the things that you want to do, right? The tasks that you want to create, the activities. I'm excited to see if you know, they update the Marquette to work with this as a design tool, because I love using Marquette a lot in VR. I'd love to use it in the HoloLens in the same way.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting, and I feel like with the new hand grab and manipulation interactions, stuff like the maquette tool, which is a design tool, I think will be a lot more usable in something like the HoloLens too, for sure. So guys, it's 1 p.m. Central. I'd say let's go for maybe another 10 minutes. You know, I know we started a little bit late, but didn't want to go too far past. So what do you guys think about, you know, Alex Kipman showed something about eye tracking, but he didn't spend a lot of time on it. What do you guys gather from the few moments that was mentioned?
I have a feeling it's just a simple raycast of where your eyes are looking. I don't know that there's a lot of meat behind that. I think it's maybe an introduction to something that will be a lot more useful down the road. But that's just a gut reaction. I'd like to hear what Preston thinks about that, because I know he spent some time thinking about that particular feature.
The eye tracking piece is interesting. So, you know, we're starting to learn a lot about kind of gaze controls and gaze mechanics. Certainly in the realm of usability and user testing, there's been a lot around heat metrics and heat mechanics and heat vision, so to speak, which is even a fun concept just thinking about it. But
yeah.
You know, the thing is, in that demo, at least from what I could see there, it did look like they were doing possibly up and down motion on the browser with eye gazing, meaning your pupils were looking up and down the screen, and it was actually scrolling. That's what it looked like to me.
Interesting.
So,
yeah,
that poses a whole bunch of new challenges, right? Because if you have a gaze cursor, and those that have had the chance to mess with that, you know, within HoloLens, and now you're adding complexity into those micro interactions within inside of people, you know, using your different ways that you're looking with your eyes and stuff, that can that's going to open a whole new world of awesomeness, I think. But it's going to be really tricky to design for some of that stuff, and we also got to think about how we test for it. So, what did you think from that video? Did you kind of get the same thing? I kind of thought they were actually trying to scroll the window with their eyes.
I think they had a button that they were hovering over with their gaze, and it tracked it the same way that you would gaze track the head.
Okay. It might have just been I couldn't see it very well. I was 10 minutes delayed in VR, it seemed like.
Yeah. Yeah, so Levi, I don't know if you're still with us or if your video is frozen. But yeah, you know, it's interesting that Alex mentioned the eye tracking but didn't go into a lot of detail. And it makes me kind of wonder what that means, if that means that they weren't quite ready to announce the fullness of those capabilities, or if that means that you know, they're still working out a few details that's going to come over the next few months. But nevertheless, it's interesting that is a built-in capability. And I know Magic Leap has eye tracking. Is that right, Preston?
Yeah, it does, and it works really well for various types of interactions. But this looks like, I mean, it could be even more sophisticated just based upon kind of even the demo video that they showed and how it was tracking pupil location.
Yes.
And I think that also lends itself well to thinking about how these devices might work from an accessibility standpoint too. Bringing in other types of people that are using these devices and having other different types of challenges.
Yeah.
So, but I think overall, what was really exciting was, I mean, like the virtual piano was just really cool. I can't get over the fact that how good the finger tracking was to do that. And I still believe, still a strong believer that we do need to have some type of tactile input-based device that exists in tandem with this type of medium so that we can feel pressure and sensation.
Yeah.
You know?
Levi and I have thought a lot
really
about that,
crucial.
haven't we?
Yeah. Yeah.
I was saying Levi and I have
We've
thought a lot
put
about
a lot
that.
of thought. Yeah, we put a lot of thought into that space for sure. I really think that one thing that was really telling was the partnership with Trimble. I don't know if it's a partnership, but that hard hat with the goggles. One of the things that I've been a big proponent of is the fact that the HoloLens is your eyes into a space, into an ecosystem, but there's so much more interactivity if we're going to be overlaying reality. We'll have gloves, we'll have watches, we'll have shoes, we'll have hats, it's one piece of what should be an ecosystem that interacts with this space. And I think that a computer is relevant. I like that they were using the phone and putting things into the HoloLens experience from.
Yeah, I think Levi got disconnected again.
Little broken up there, Levi, but hopefully if you can get to fill in that thought.
It looks like Levi, is your video
Are
back?
you there?
I think you're back now, Levi.
Back, yeah.
I think
There
you're
we
right,
go.
Levi. And to reiterate that, just because you broke up there a moment,
Yeah.
was, it really does need to be thought of as one particular device into an ecosystem,
Yep.
like you said. I think, it's with the HoloLens, it's kind of the visual and the touch part of the ecosystem, but there are other things with like body suits, which, everyone knows I have a VR suit.
Do you? I didn't know that.
I didn't either.
And, well, okay. Well, there, now you know. And I have the VR gloves, so it's understanding kind of how to get those different sensations that we capture. And even, I think what's really cool about that, if you think about kind of out-of-body experiences, if you go a little bit crazy there, is there's possibly like new senses that we can actually achieve as we push forward through this type of evolutionary state.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. What do you guys think about the double field of view?
I feel like that's a really, it sounds really good, but the last field of view was so small that even double, I wonder if that's enough. Like, I mean, anything more is better, but is double enough to shift into, I believe, in this space, I'm immersed, I'm in it, versus I'm still just sort of like, am I holding up an iPad now instead of a phone, but it's still not like to the state where you're immersed. I don't know that it'll get us there. So it feels like a very small evolution. Mm-hmm. I would have been blown away if it would have been something like that, plus maybe some, like, if you look and it tracks your eyes and moves it with your eyes, something like that would be maybe a little bit more impressive. So it didn't wow me, but it's still much needed. But I feel like they could have. I'd like more on the field of view. Side of things.
Some of the things with the field of view, and definitely double is better. But then, like I said, I'm a little bit spoiled, right? So I was I can't remember what the field of view is in the IMAX. But from a VR standpoint, that's like more than almost double what the current standard is. So looking at the HoloLens and looking at where we were with kind of that, mobile screen view in front of you, it does pose a lot of challenges from a design aspect. I think doubling this, I mean, we're working with the laws of physics here when we start to get down to it, so that becomes a big challenge. I think as far as I can't wait to try it on myself to kind of see, do you have that same type of mirrored experience where you're like, feel like you're cutting off your design or your elements, right?
Right.
Now, even on the Magic Leap, from what I can understand, is some of that device, actually the eye track does kick in a little bit there to help kind of localize some of those holographic representations, so they don't necessarily look like they blend off screen, if that makes sense. It gives a little bit more depth to it, right?
Yeah.
And that's really what we need, is that depth.
Also, yeah, and I just want to let everyone know, Sky just joined us. So Sky, originally we were going to end in about 1 minute, but since you just joined us, we'll stick around maybe for 3 or 4 more minutes, but probably can't stick around too much longer after that. So Sky, tell us. So we've been talking and sharing our thoughts on the hand tracking, the field of view, the size and weights, and also the price. So tell us, what are some of your most pressing thoughts and reactions from the freshly announced HoloLens 2?
Well, for me, the most impressive was definitely the hand tracking. I think most people will agree with that. And I guess when I look at this device, the price point, unfortunately, they didn't seem to want to drop the price. In fact, they raised the price, correct? Yeah. So that was a little bit surprising for me, because everyone was expecting them to drop the price a little bit. Mm-hmm. Those are probably the two biggest surprises. One nice thing about the form factor now is that it has this visor capability, right, where you can raise it up, which it has actually been a pretty big problem sometimes, when you just need to look at something directly. So that really helps, and the balance, of course, makes it very comfortable. So I really like that. Do I wish it to be smaller? I do wish it to be smaller.
So what message do you think Microsoft is sending by them raising the price?
Yeah, it's, like, I haven't had a lot of time to think about this, but clearly Microsoft is targeting the big corporations here, with, the companies with money, to do any kind of customization or development. Kind of, not as good for the indie devs, I would say, because of the price point. And also, I guess in terms of, for the consumer market, no one is going to pay like $3,500 for a consumer device, right? Like, at this point.
So Arjun and also, a few other people are commenting live right now saying that, well, actually the price has dropped because the old commercial edition, enterprise edition, was $5,000. So now the price has dropped.
That's true.
Yeah, from $5,000 to $3,500. So that's an interesting angle to look at it that way, because most developers,
That's true.
It dropped for businesses. I think that's what it is there. I think to that point, it really dropped for its business price, actually. But it did. But then again, they're targeting businesses, so consumers, But honestly, I think there does need to be a development edition to get that ecosystem alive, because if we close it off now, it's going to really cause a challenge with trying to get people to use this type of platform.
Do you guys
think
one
thing though, what about the $125 a month option? Because I mean, if you're an indie dev and you're a business, you have income, you have expenses. I mean, QuickBooks, just to do your accounting's $35 a month. I mean, 125 isn't that much.
No, I think it's very valid, but even when I went online real quick after the thing, I went on there to see they don't actually have any of that options out there. So I'm assuming that has to go through a whole line of funding anyways. Still, it's probably still a line of credit. And that's what Magic Leap did, actually, was they did a credit line. So same type of thing I think will happen here. And that is a good point. But it is a month-over-month expense at that point, depending on the cost.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Do you guys think that after today's announcement, more developers are gonna, maybe developers who were hesitant about going to Magic Leap are gonna say, hey, I see the value in HoloLens, I'm definitely gonna continue down with HoloLens, but now I'm gonna go ahead and pick up a Magic Leap as well because I see it's carving out a different market? What do you guys?
I don't think that it's that much of a jump from the 22 to the 35. That 1300. I don't know that it's enough of a. I don't think the Magic Leap. If Magic Leap was like $800, I feel like that's a big enough difference.
True.
But I feel
Yeah.
like at that price point, you're already over a couple grand. You're probably putting it on a credit card if you're an indie dev. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was nodding the whole time you were saying that, Levi, but you can't see me. But essentially, I agree. I think it's not too much of a price point, but I see the two ecosystems still evolving a little bit differently, and even from an interaction standpoint. But if you were on the fence about which direction you were going to go, I definitely, and you had experienced this a little bit, I could definitely see you leaning more towards the HoloLens personally. Just because the platform ecosystem is really strong. You know the support's been there, and they also have a proven record now that they've been providing that support for 3-4 years. You know what I mean? 3 years. So I think that's a really big thing that people look for when they're trying to determine which ecosystem should they exist upon.
All right, so last couple questions, 1 or 2 questions. Do you feel that what was shown today, like we all agree it was very impressive, but do you feel that it was 4 years worth of hardware development, or do you feel like Microsoft is still saving a lot for their competition?
I think they're saving a little bit. I think that they have I think there's something that they have that they're keeping in their pocket, and I don't know what it is. I don't know which of these areas, it is, but I feel like they knew they needed to make a big splash to sort of snuff out the momentum that Magic Leap has made. And I think that they showed just enough today to do that. I really do. I'm impressed with the number of boxes that they checked today. Mm-hmm. And so 4 years, I don't know how long it takes them to double a field of view or make it. I don't think it takes 4 years to make it lighter, but if they just released the second one and that field of view is the same and it was a little lighter, people would be like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
They kind of needed to have, go.
And if you remember, Levi, there was at one point, this may actually be another generation, because there might have been the V2, right? So I actually didn't expect us to see this version of this release actually where we were till I was expecting it maybe third quarter. So, whether that the Magic Leap caused a little bit of push forward on that, it's definitely possible, right? Because when you're first in the ecosystem and then you're like, we can one-up you again. But to your point, I think, how I see this type of hardware evolving is getting to a standardized microarchitecture, and then within that, having you just being able to swap out the GPU and the CPU, and then the lenses, right?
Yeah.
So, and then along the way, working on the battery performance and the comfort and the weight, right? So I think that we have all of those kind of equations now working together. It's just a matter of, getting to the point in time where it costs cheap enough to do those types of manufacturing channels.
Awesome. So I want to hear some last thoughts from each of you guys, and then we'll call it good for the live stream today. While you're sharing your thoughts, I'm just going to loop a silent video in the background of the Magic Leap, the HoloLens 2. So yeah, feel free, go for it. Let me know what your final thoughts are from the announcement today. Go for it, Sky. You can go first.
Oh, sure. Okay. Well, my final thoughts is that it is an amazing device, and I can really see a lot of potential for it. When I looked at all those very nice interactions, I think it will be more difficult for indie devs to actually handle all those nice interactions. I really doubt that it's all baked into the OS. So that is definitely something we need to think about when it comes to the development. Like the time might actually take longer, but who knows? Maybe they come up with some very fancy stuff with Unreal, right? So. Yeah, that's it for me, I would say. Yeah.
Awesome. What about you, Levi?
I'd like to piggyback a little bit on what Sky is saying. I just had a thought come to mind. We kind of just got our mouse. We have a GUI now. Like we have instead of it just being like plug an in keyboard to computer, we have a mouse now. Like, I feel like there's something that just happened today that set us up for foundational components for builders and developers and indie devs, etc. I think that we now have all the pieces in place to have like Adobe Illustrator for spatial, where like we can have different, because Preston earlier in this conversation mentioned a little bit about like the kind of what you're saying, where it's like, we have to kind of rethink how we're interacting. Are the UI UX people ready for this? They don't have the tools. The tools almost don't exist for this space. And so to that point, I feel like indie devs maybe don't have that ability yet, but now we have the hardware available for people to create the foundational creative solutions necessary for indie devs to pick that up and run with it. And I think that's what's the most exciting piece of what we saw today, was we just saw technical capabilities that make all of those foundational pieces now possible. So that's kind of how, looking at Azure, the cloud computing, the spatial anchors, the motion tracking, all of the things that we saw today, like we now have those pieces ready to create our, I use Sketch 3 by Bohemian Coding, and like that wasn't really possible 10 years ago, but it's amazingly powerful and fast, and I can just iterate incredibly quickly with graphic design because of that tool. I just think that we're going to start seeing a lot of tools popping up that are really useful that help indie developers because of what we saw today.
That's
Awesome.
true.
Awesome.
That's very
what
good
about
point.
you, Preston?
Yeah, I think definitely, I've been preaching this for years, that there's just not enough people to kind of think this way. And the tools, well, it's going to really be dependent upon, like, how robust some of that SDK is when it comes out and when it's built out, right?
Yeah.
To give that type of modular capability, but also to help developers understand, like, there's a standardized way to do these different types of things, right? I'm doing a gaze interaction plus a grab interaction. What are the micro pieces that I need to connect together to make that work? Even when looking at like Magic Leap, when they're going through some of that stuff, a lot of the interactions were really awesome and cool. But honestly, I had to jump right into the C# and actually hook up all the event structures and the underlying code to make it happen.
Yep.
So making that as a reusable component, making those pieces easy to manipulate for designers that are not going to necessarily pick up the code, or the level of the code, is going to be really important. The other thing is, overall, I was impressed. Yeah, I have very high expectations, like I mentioned before. But I think the tools, the technology is definitely progressing faster than I think the developmental design capability is within the entire ecosystem. If you try to bring back an analogy, I think if I look at this, we're probably in our third or fourth generation now of VR. We're entering into what I would consider our second to third generation of AR, or advanced AR with spatial systems. So I think we're getting really, really good at iterating upon the hardware. I think we're definitely to a point where we need to take a little step back and think about, like, how do we make these connected experiences work across these different ecosystems, right? Like we were trying to demonstrate in our own video was sharing, mixed reality and virtual reality inside of mixed reality. It was really meant to kind of showcase a lot of that capability that we could do, right? I mean, even right now, having this live broadcast to think about this type of stuff, I'm on the road to Houston, and being able to be part of this conversation still, right? It's truly transformative. I just would like to, have a HoloLens or some other type of augmented device with me to further augment that experience, and then just let my car drive itself.
Yes.
So, my final thoughts are: it's really good. It's looking great. Give me one now. Give me one now, and give me one now.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, and I'll go ahead and share my final thoughts, and then we'll end the live stream. I agree with everything that you guys have said. I think that there was so much talked about today, but there's no doubt that the star of the show, and intentionally, even in their keynote, was the hand interactions. the detail and the doors that open due to hand interaction. They did show a lot of stuff. They showed, you know, eye detection. They showed the flipping up of the headset, the double the field of view, the lighter device, you know, the focus in on enterprise, the customization, and you know, cloud anchors and Azure, you know, cameras and IoT and, you know, cloud powered rendering. And there was a lot shown. But definitely the most time and the most visuals was given to the hand interaction. And I think that's exactly, it goes back to what you were saying too, Levi, is that because we've got our mouse now. The PC was still very powerful back in the days when it was just keyboard and typing in code and typing in stuff. But the mouse kind of transformed the interaction. And I do agree that, you know, with the level of hand interaction that we have now, we now have a tool on our hands. You know, we now have something that's yeah, right. Yeah, no pun intended.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, right.
we have a tool on our hand now. You know, I'm just thinking in my mind right now of so many use cases of actual productive things I can do with it. That's truly not just showcase. You know, HoloLens 1 was a fantastic showcase device. It was practical.
Agreed.
You know, I would say that 30% of my contracts that I had was for really practical reasons. But honestly, 70% of my contracts were for showcase reasons. They were for expos and showrooms and demos and the wow factor. But now I feel like the tables have turned with the hand interaction, where we finally have a real usable tool on our hands that we didn't have before, and that's going to open up so many doors. So thank you guys. I think this was great. It's clearly, you know, we probably have several more hours worth of content to talk about, but I think this is good for today. Let's keep the conversation going. Let me know if you have any other thoughts in the comments below, and we'll be replying to them. And thank you very much for tuning in today. And thank you, Levi, Sky, and Preston. Thank you guys for joining us, especially Preston, you on the road to Houston.
Yes.
All right.
Y'all have a good one. Okay.